I guess I didn't swag enough. Stupid fruity pebble chain. We bag enough. I guess I didn't swag enough. Stupid fruity pebble chain. We bag enough. Poppin' tan model BC couldn't brag 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 enough. I guess I didn't swag enough. Stupid fruity pebble chain.
And welcome once again to another episode of the Horizon Roundtable. I am Bob McDonald, and joining me is my co-host Jim Sarro.
Good morning, Bob. I'm back inside from shoveling and ready to talk Horizon League basketball. Week number 1 of conference play has come and gone, and let's get after it.
Absolutely. And Jim, you can find on Twitter at Jim Sarro. You can find us on the web at horizonroundtable.com. You can find links to all our social sites and sites where podcasts are available at horizonroundtable.com/subscribe. Incidentally, you can also sign up for emails. Every time a story is published, it goes right to your inbox. So go to horizonroundtable.com/subscribe. Become a patron, patreon.com/horizonroundtable. You get you get exclusive access to certain articles, and of course you get early access to the, I don't know how I'm gonna do this week, the power rankings for both men and women. So yeah, patreon.com/horizonroundtable, and of course you can donate to us directly and to our writers too, by the way. horizonroundtable.com/donate. The links to our writers various payment accounts are at the top of the page. If you like what they're doing, click on that and click on their site and send them some money. And of course, we're also going to try to do that on our own as well. But yeah, horizonroundtable.com/donate. So yeah, it was the first week of conference play is in the books. And I don't know what, 1 week a season doesn't make, but I mean, yeah, there's definitely some ups and downs and everything in between.
Yeah, it's hard to get a good feel for the league. You had some interesting things play out. Obviously Robert Morris went on a little trip out to the western edge of the conference, and that's proving to be a little bit more of a battleground. You had some teams at the top of the standings get wins against the bottom, so it's hard to know where they're at. So let's break it all down. Where do you want to start today?
All right, we're gonna start with Youngstown State, because clearly they had the best week out of everybody. Although, yeah, the Wright State has proven to be super tough, but Youngstown State kind of came through in the end, and then they turned around. They turned around and beat IU Indy. They held IU Indy, the system, to 55 points. IU Indy, capable of scoring triple digits at any point in time, were held to 55 points by Youngstown State. That's how good a play. Honestly, that is how good Youngstown State is. When you can hold a high-powered offense like IU Indy to 55 points.
Well, IU Indy was horrific from three in that game.
They were so bad.
I think they were 16% from 3. So that's you're going to have a tough road to go when you're only shooting 16% from deep in today's college basketball world. So that is really the storyline there. I think I read on social media this was the first time a Ben Howlett basketball team scored under 60 points either ever or in like 10 years. I can't remember.
It's been a I think if this is the first time ever, I don't know about that, but definitely the first time in Division I, for sure.
Yeah, it was a crazy stat because obviously so much has been made about the high power, high pace system. They're number one, and a week ago I haven't looked lately, but they're number one in tempo in college basketball. And so 55 points is definitely an abomination for what they're trying to accomplish. I mean, the positive, if you can take anything away from IU Indy this week, is that they didn't get smoked in terms of points allowed. When they lost to Detroit Mercy put 92 on them. But
we'll talk about Detroit Mercy's week too, because they had a really good one too.
They had a good week, but 78 allowed for Youngstown. So I mean, if there's any positive, is that they didn't give up 100. I mean, because that easily, when you shoot as bad as they shot in that game for IU Indy, could have been
Oh yeah.
100. It could have been a doubler. 55 to 110 if you're not careful with
Yeah.
it.
So there you go. Yeah, and IU, like I said, to your point, IU Indy had a very good bad week. The double-digit gaps in both of their games. Yeah, I mean, Youngstown State beat them by 23, and Detroit Mercy beat them by double digits too. And Detroit Mercy, a team that has been terrible at shooting three-pointers,
They
was
hit
pretty
45%.
good against IU Indy. So yeah. But yeah, so those are the top and the bottom teams.
Well, the other thing that stood out too for the system with IU Indy against Mercy, they only forced 9 turnovers. They got
Yeah,
more turnovers against Youngstown. I think they got 16 turnovers from Youngstown, but they only got 9 turnovers forced against Detroit Mercy. So when your defense isn't good and you're allowing that many possessions, you're going to be in trouble. I mean, Mercy hit 45% of their threes. Sorry, Detroit Mercy. I know some people would not like me saying Mercy. Detroit Mercy
yeah. There's a
only hit.
whole thread about this on the Detroit Mercy message board. So, but
Yeah,
there's
I
a
come
whole
in peace with that one. That's just
congratulations. You just made the list, bud.
Yeah, I come in peace. That's a slip up. That I did not mean that. But Detroit Mercy, you can't allow a team to get that many possessions, and then when they're shooting really well, on top of that, and they got a big contribution from in that game from Aiden Carter. He
Yeah,
had 21, 6, and 4. Although I think he may have gotten hurt because he did not play against Cleveland State.
he did. He did get hurt. Yeah, he was. Yeah, but to your point, yeah, if we want to switch over to Detroit Mercy, who had also a very good week, which is something they desperately need considering their non-conference has been pretty. Eh. I mean, but Detroit Mercy benefited from the fact that this week they played the two worst defensive teams in the conference in IU Indy and of course Cleveland State. Yeah, uh, Cleveland State made TJ Nadu look like Larry Bird. He got a career high on that game, and Cleveland State had no stop for them. And the only good news for Cleveland State is that they finally got Josiah Harris and Dan Nessa back, but that didn't even make a difference. Um, Man,
Yeah, I
I don't
mean
know.
Josiah
They were
Harris, 2 of 11 shooting.
yeah, they were struggling, and Detroit Mercy was not. I mean, this is the amazing thing about Detroit Mercy this week. Against IU Indy, Orlando Lovejoy scored 0 points, and they still won by double digits. They scored zero. He scored 0 points, and they still won by double digits. And then, of course, they win by double digits against Cleveland State, and Orlando Lovejoy scores 17. Um, it's funny because we had a conversation about because I really thought going into the season we weren't going to see as much of Orlando Lovejoy at the point as I didn't think we were going to see him as much at the point guard. Turns out that is incorrect. That was highly inaccurate because it seems very much so that he is okay with being the facilitator, even at the expense of his productivity scoring wise, and that proved very true against IU Indy. They scored 92. What was it? It was 92 points against against IU Indy, and Orlando Lovejoy had none of those points. So yeah, I think that's a good sign moving forward. Again, as I mentioned, maybe not a great, maybe I don't know how much to read into this, given that the situations between both IU Indy and Cleveland State. But I mean, can't hurt. Certainly cannot hurt at all.
Yeah, for Detroit Mercy, they got the 2 bottom teams, but they did what you're supposed to do. They went and won those games, and they won them,
Handily.
relatively easily. And they got scoring from Nadu. You asked where Nadu had been. He listened to the podcast, and he showed up with 26 points. And and then They got production from Aiden Carter. I will say that as a caveat, preseason, much talk was made about Orlando Lovejoy as a player of the year. You hang a goose egg in a conference game, you are automatically eliminated. I believe that's deep in the bylaws of the conference voting. So voters, I don't care what he does
Them's the
from here
rules.
on out.
Sorry.
Yep, those are the rules, at least in the Horizon Roundtable. And if they're not, I'm making them up, damn it. But, I do appreciate what you said about him being a facilitator and doing what they needed to do to win. That's at the bottom of at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Doing what you need to do to win. And they did that. And conversely, Cleveland State, like the thing that you look at there, they couldn't stop Detroit. They get, they shot 45%. They out rebounded Detroit, but they couldn't shoot at all. They were 31% from the field. I mean, just abysmal.
It was atrocious. I mean, seriously.
Abysmal.
If you and this is true for both IU Indy and Cleveland State, is that your defense is not good. This isn't even like an opinion. This is statistically true for both of these teams. If you have a defense that is not very good, your offense definitely needs to be on point, and this was not the case with either Cleveland State or IU Indy this week. Because watching that Cleveland State Detroit Mercy game, there were stretches, and Cleveland State had chances to get back into this game. Same with IU Indy against Youngstown State. But every time that they got close, their offense fizzled. And when your defense is not up to par, you're going to pay for it. And both Youngstown State and Detroit Mercy made these two teams pay big time.
Yeah, I mean, Cleveland State's really hard to figure out where they're at and what's going on because, another team wants to play fast and just doesn't have the pieces to score enough, and then they're not. I mean, we've talked many times to your point. Defense is just bad. The one positive I take for them, a guy we talked about on the podcast last week, Jaden Lipscomb, he did have another nice week for them.
Oh, he did.
He averaged 18 points or 19 points a game, something like that. He had 15 against Detroit Mercy, and he had 23 against NKU. And he got some assists, a couple of rebounds, some steals. Like, he did a little bit of everything. So again, if you're looking for the silver lining, it is maybe they're getting some development from another guy. And I did see Trey Beard was playing again, so they have their guys back, but that didn't help.
No, I think they definitely do need to ease into that. And to be fair, Cleveland State did not have either Dianessa or Josiah Harris against Northern Kentucky, and that killed them. It absolutely killed them. And against Northern Kentucky, man, that without those two guys, especially with a guy like LJ Wells and they ate him up, and they ate him up near the end of that game. But even regardless of that, Northern Kentucky dropped 95 on them. So, and Northern Kentucky doesn't exactly strike me as a team that should be dropping 95 on you under any circumstances. And they did.
In that game, they're shooting for NKU 56, 48, and 93. That's some magical stuff right there. 56% overall, 48% from deep, and 93% from the line. Like, you're in for a bad night when the other team is shooting 93% from the line on top of making everything else that they're taking. Just an amazing.
The funny part is when you look at that game, Cleveland State did not shoot poorly in that game. They showed 45 and 56 from field goal, 45 field goal and 56 from 3-point. They did not do bad at all. What they did really bad at was the turnovers. They had 20 turnovers in that game against Northern Kentucky, which again is expected knowing what Northern Kentucky is capable of on the defensive end. Because this team has really got it together as far as the defense is concerned. And this seems to definitely be like Darren Horn's dream scenario when it comes to defense, because they're doing exactly what Well, at least in this game, we'll talk about the Purdue Fort Wayne game a little later. In fact, we'll probably talk about that next. But in this game, that was everything was clicking for them. They were able to out rebound Cleveland State. They were able to produce turnovers and turn those into points. They definitely got they had 26 points off of turnovers, and they dominated the paint. They had 40 points in the paint. And Cleveland State only had 16, and that's understandable because when you don't have Nessa or Harris, and you're going to suffer, and they definitely suffered in this game, and that is definitely what Northern Kentucky did. Northern Kentucky I they had a shot, Jim. They had a shot of sweeping the week and running their win streak to 7. And Purdue Fort Wayne said, "Not today, sir. Not today."
Yeah, you have in that Purdue Fort Wayne game, they only got 4 points from O'Day, and O'Day's been a really big piece for what they've done off the bat. He was only 1 for 7 shooting, and
Yeah.
they forced a turnover late in that game, and I can't remember who. He was going to track down the loose ball, going for a tie-in basket, and ended up struggling to pick it up, and they turned it right back over. Didn't get a
That would have
shot
been,
off.
Tay Dozier right
Tay
at the end
Dozier.
of the game. Yeah.
Yep. And that wasn't a bad play. It's just like he
No,
was
it
trying
really
to
wasn't.
instead
It
of
was, it was
diving on it. Yeah, he was trying to like make the get
He
get
got
them
the
the easy
steal.
basket.
It was he had a shot at it. He got the steal, a timely steal, but he couldn't hang on to the ball. And that was just one of multiple missed opportunities at the end of the game for Northern Kentucky because that was definitely a game where um that was definitely a game where Purdue Fort Wayne came through and absolutely killed it. That is a night and day game for Purdue Fort Wayne because in that first half, they were shooting 30% from beyond the arc. They went 6 for 9 in the second half and just absolutely score. I mean, they had. I mean, their second half field goal percentage in general was 64%. Their free throws still need a lot of work, but I mean, when you're shooting that good, um, especially in that game, and on the flip side, as good as Northern Kentucky was in the first half of that game, they were terrible in the second half. They were terrible in the second half. I mean, they only shot 25% from the field in the second half. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, the thing that also stood out to me statistically in the Fort Wayne game, I saw parts of that game. I was flipping around a little bit and saw a lot of action. And something in a tight game that they hadn't really done a great job with was rebounding. And you had Darius Duffy get 8 rebounds. And when you think about it, you mentioned LJ Wells has developed into a man. Like that guy is jacked. He is a super impactful player in the paint. And then you pair that with Cale Robinson, who in the Fort Wayne game had 26 and 7, getting some rebounds against Northern Kentucky, really in a 2-point game. That's probably the difference because they shot well and Northern Kentucky did not shoot well. But keeping Northern Kentucky, like we just talked about, like with IU, into keeping teams from getting multiple possessions or multiple attempts at the basket. Well, they had 34 rebounds to 36, and I would have thought for sure that the gap would have been wider for NKU with guys like Wells and Robinson rebounding, but it wasn't because you had Darius Duffy have a really nice game, at least on that end. Hey, Bob, you're on mute.
To your point, this was a team. This is as far as kind of rebounding is concerned. I wasn't surprised by kind of the rebounding differential, how close it was, because these are two teams that kind of are pretty evenly matched when it comes to the glass, and so I wasn't really exactly surprised that uh, Purdue Fort Wayne was able to hang. Uh, they were going to stay even because as far as kind of the front court is concerned, they're pretty evenly matched. I mean, nothing to take away from LJ Wells, but yeah, to your point, the key the deciding factor was Cale Robinson for sure. I mean, that is a guy that LJ Wells is good, but having a guy like Cale Robinson was essential, and Dan Goresger coming on having a really good game, especially from beyond the arc. it has been good this week, although it didn't produce exactly what they were looking for. And let's talk about Corey Hadnot, man. Corey Hadnot has had a hell of a week this year. Hell of a week this year. Yeah. He had an outstanding week because he scored 25 in this game, and in the loss against Oakland, he had 33. So Corey Hadnot I mean, we talked in the preseason about how this is his team this year, and he spent the first two games of this conference schedule living up to that billing of being the guy for Purdue Fort Wayne for sure.
Yeah, they had good production from Hadnot and DeAndre Craig because he had 22 against Oakland,
Yeah.
he had 15 against NKU. So they have a really nice pairing, going. But we had talked about their big three with Stevenson. Stevenson's offense hasn't been there as much, but like he did a lot of the other things. He had 6 boards, 7 assists, 3 steals against NKU. So when you had the other guys rolling and you didn't need the third guy to score, the third guy did other stuff, and that's the difference between winning a tight game and losing a tight game. But Hadnot's been really, really good, and his shooting percentage is amazing. To get the points he gets. Honestly, the only thing he didn't do a good job with, and you alluded to it, was free throws. He was 7 of 13 against NKU.
Although I should point out, and yet they still won that game. But one of the other things, but when we talk about, to your point, when we talk about the Oakland game, which they lost, but they definitely made it a game near the end. Hadnot had 33, Craig had 22, and then there was just a drop. To your point, Stevenson only had 8 in that game. But yeah, that was obviously there was a difference because you need to, with a team that's set up like Purdue Fort Wayne has. Yes, it's good to have 2 guys who are producing, but you got to have that third guy, and that didn't happen against Oakland, and they suffered for it. Then you flip around and flip to the Northern Kentucky game where they did have that productivity, and in the end, they were able to come through and get that win. And by the way, and I didn't realize this is the Purdue Fort Wayne game was Oakland's only game in conference this week. I'm not wish casting Toledo anymore, but they did vanquish Toledo too. That was good.
Both those games for Oakland, if you want to watch entertaining basketball, I highly recommend throwing on the Oakland Golden Grizzlies. They are super fun to watch. I mean, when you look at the scores of these games this week for Oakland.
Did you hear that, Oakland students? They're entertaining to watch. If you're looking at that going, okay, they won a game 101-92, and then they won 92, or would they beat Toledo 98-97. So this is not exactly, if you're like a purist and you want some great, defensive struggle or whatever, if you're a Big Ten basketball fan, you're probably not going to like watching Oakland. But I personally, watch parts of both those games, and I was very entertained just as a basketball fan watching beautiful offense. That Oakland Toledo game was back and forth the entire time, and
Toledo. They made some shots. I was like, no way. I thought Oakland had them, because Oakland was making shots off of almost like this great great play design and just knowing where everybody's supposed to be. And Toledo was just just had guys making one-on-one plays. And I don't down one-on-one play. I love watching some of that, but it was that the degree of difficulty for Toledo was way higher than what Oakland, because Oakland was just so much better coached and prepared and in that. In the strategy, at least.
It also helps It also helps you got a guy like Brody Robinson running the point. That guy is just amazing.
Well, you jinxed him. He had 3 turnovers in a game, so he tripled his output. Tripled his output for the season.
3 whole turnovers for that. That's true. I didn't realize that, and he had 2 turnovers during the Toledo game, but he also had 6 assists in that game too. So not a when you're having an infinity turnover. And by the way, to your point, the 3 turnovers that committed against Purdue Fort Wayne, I guess should be expected because Purdue Fort Wayne produces has historically produced a lot of turnovers. But Bernie Robinson also had 8 assists in that game to go along with his 27 points. So he'll be forgiven if he makes a couple of miscues, especially against a team that prides itself on miscues. And by the way, during in the Purdue Fort Wayne game, they only turned the ball over 11 times, which is, that's good, especially against the Purdue Fort Wayne team who usually produces way more turnovers than that.
Well, you think about
So,
that. 25 assists to 11 turnovers. Every coach in the country is going to take that. That's over 2-1.
oh, absolutely.
And at the
Without a
pace
doubt.
they're playing, 11 turnovers on the number of possessions in that game.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to take that. And honestly, Fort Wayne only had 8 turnovers. That's what I was saying. It was a beautiful game to watch if you want to
Oh,
watch great
yeah.
offensive basketball.
It
And
was so good.
yeah, so Oakland did a really nice job for the league this week, getting a nice non-conference win, but also establishing that their strategy of playing tough teams in the non-conference. And I personally called it out when they lost that EMU game. I was like, okay, well, what's the point of playing hard teams if you can't beat the mid-majors? But they've really come back from that and got a nice win against Fort Wayne in a very entertaining game, and then put on an even more entertaining game yesterday against Toledo. So
Oh, yeah.
hopefully some young people were in the building for that one
Yeah.
yesterday, because apparently they weren't on Wednesday.
Oh, yeah. And Greg Campy was very, very mad about that, as I'm sure you all saw already. Um, yeah, I mean, and I get that. I mean, especially with we see this isn't an isolated incident, especially not within the conference for sure. I mean, this has been kind of a long-standing discussion of, okay, the students should be there. I mean, yeah, I get kind of the whole, you know, argument, if you will, about, oh, well, we're commuter students, blah, 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 blah. Like, really, that doesn't, I'm sorry, that falls flat with me, and I've never figured out what the deal is with that. Um, I mean, it, these are entertaining games. They are. I mean, there's no dispute of these games. And this is across the conference for sure. This is across the conference. And we're talking about an entire group, students who by and large are the ones pretty much bankrolling you know outside donations, notwithstanding. But by and large, the vast majority of the money that's being generated, that the vast majority of money that is being put into athletics is coming from the student body. And so I guess the question that I have, like, so why? I mean, what is the strategy? What is the strategy of getting these students in the seat? Because there needs to be a long-term strategy with this, because as we know, Jim, students who are going to these games eventually become the future season ticket holders, and your season ticket holder base is getting older and older, and they're not going to get replaced with anything. And then you're going to end up with nobody in the stands because, all of your season ticket holders have, and, for lack of a better word, have died off, and you don't have anybody to replace them. And I don't know. I guess I don't know if what strategy could be put in place to push that. But guys got to start. I mean, just if not for just the immediate benefit of it, thinking long term. Thinking long term has been, and that's been kind of a bugaboo for me at all. I don't know. I mean, and to Campy's point, like, yeah, why are you guys not there? I mean, I'm saying this, and I think our target demographic for this podcast is definitely not college age students. So, like, we're pretty much talking to the wind on this one, but it is what it is.
Last night I was at a concert, and the opening act was a guy named Brian Vander Ark, and Brian Vander Ark is the lead singer of a band called the Verve Pipe, which our target audience would know the song "The Freshman."
Oh
However,
my God,
the people we're talking, yeah, the
that
people
shit,
we're
that
talking
shit
about.
came out freshman year of college for me. That's how long ago that was.
There you go.
Oh
And
man.
so that's why you remember, freshmen and freshmen. It's easy. Keep it. It's never going to lose a spot in your brain. You might not remember, the holiday season from 2017, but you always remember the freshman came out when you were a freshman. And
Oh
I
Jesus.
share that as a backdrop of, yeah, the people that we're talking about maybe aren't listening to this forum, but you know, at the end of the day, attending these games on campus, all the only only Milwaukee is playing most of their games off campus. Everybody else is playing either on campus or, in the case of Fort Wayne, at the Coliseum directly across the street from campus.
But
Um,
or in the case of the game against Northern Kentucky, they were at the Gate Center on
they're
campus.
at, yep, and they had some lively students. There are some
They
kids
certainly
get
did.
there are some kids that were getting after it on the court. I mean, one kid almost crashed out a couple times when things weren't going their way late in the game, and but I think about that, like the best student sections, they're organized and run by the students. So finding that person who's going to stand up and be that person, we've talked about it here.
Yeah.
Our friend of the show, Jimmy Lemke, he was that guy back in the day. He's tried to
Mhm.
pass the keys on to, other students, and that's happened, but it waffles over time. Not for Milwaukee, just across the league. And you think about the best student sections in the country, like at Grand Canyon, who we obviously love to rip on here on the podcast. But at the
We
end of the
do.
day, they have a fantastic student section, and it's highly organized. I've been to, here in Milwaukee, I've been to Marquette University men's or women's soccer games before, and they have organization of their students. So I don't, and I know the Grizz Gang, I believe, was the thing in Oakland. Is that still going
It's
on?
as far as I know, yeah. As far as I know,
So, yeah,
that
but you gotta have some,
organization still exists in some way, shape, or form. But yeah,
yeah, it
apparently
comes in.
not enough during the Purdue Fort Wayne game, but as far as I know, they do exist still.
Yeah, but whoever's, working with that group, it's obviously their students first, but if you're involved in activities like that, you really gotta, you gotta get the word out. It's grassroots in this world, in the student section world, because at the end of the day, there isn't necessarily a ton of money, to put into marketing or promotions. So it's just got to be, I'm bringing a friend. I'm going to the game and I'm bringing a friend, and everybody, keep doing that. But yeah, it's tough because in the case of Oakland, they have they're only 4-5 on the season, but
Well,
they
actually, they're
won.
now 5-5 on the season,
Yeah,
thanks
sorry,
to
yeah,
the win
five and
against
five.
Toledo.
Yeah, I forgot about that one already. But they're 5-5, 5-5 on the season, and they're showing that they're for real. And they have, I mean, just such a balanced attack in terms of the three big guys. Robinson, then like Zaire Wells had a big game for them off the bench.
Mhm.
Like they're just getting so much from so many, and they're going to be a tough squad. So
They
hopefully,
really are.
hopefully they get a big crowd. Except for when Green Bay comes to town, if the whole place could be empty, that'd be great. But otherwise, I hope they got a great crowd for the remaining 9 Horizon League
Yeah.
conference games.
Yeah. But and again to your point, I think there needs to be I don't know. I mean, it just seems to me like when you again, this is across the conference. There I feel like and I'm not pointing fingers because I don't want you guys to get into defensive crouching position students and saying, "Oh, why are you picking on me?" Because I know some of you will do that even if none of you are listening. So but it's valid. I mean, y- you know, I mean, it is there's plenty of there's plenty of blame to go around, but the good news is this is something that can get fixed. It's not like a terminal issue. It just needs to put a little bit more oomph into kind of the push to get some folks there. And and again, this is not isolated to an Oakland issue. This is across this can be there are you can certainly point to uh multiple, if not all, teams across the conference. And so, I mean, I'm sure it's going to be an ongoing discussion that I think somebody's going to have. Probably not us. I'm not going to belabor this all season, but it is a conversation that does need to be had because it does, as I mentioned, have far-reaching implications to the long-term growth of your athletic departments. Like, you guys got to think about that. So, let's talk about Milwaukee because they only played one game this week, and it was against Robert Morris. And you want to talk about an exciting game? This is one of them. This was definitely it because Robert Morris definitely thought they had this in control until they did not.
Well, it's kind of a game of runs too, because Milwaukee had a lead in the first half and kind of petered that away at the end of the first half. And from what I can gather, reading from their fans, they had a very spirited conversation in the halftime locker room as a team to get back on track. And of course, Robert Morris is like a tale of two games or tale of two cities this week, because what they won, how they won on Thursday is exactly how they lost on Friday.
I know, it's like
on Saturday.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, it's like, yeah, and we'll talk about the Green Bay game because we're recording this on Sunday morning, so we're not going to get to listen. We're not going to get into the Green Bay Wright State game, but yeah, to your point, Green Bay was up by double digits with 2 minutes 35 seconds left in that game, and then they weren't. What is it with Green Bay and not being able to keep leads against Robert Morris at home? This is 2 years in a row this has happened, by the way.
Yeah.
This is a little bit more heartbreaking. By the way, Jim, I don't know if you know this, but you got a cameo on the TV broadcast on a couple of occasions. By the way, you did appear in yeah, you were there.
Please tell me I wasn't picking my nose or something.
You were not.
Ridiculous.
You were not.
Oh, thank God.
I think you were looking with genuine concern, but I think I can't remember. I think it was one of the. Yeah, because one of the trainers had to patch up one of the players, so you were in that shot too, and you were also in the shot in passing as Doug Gottlieb headed to the locker room and threw a chair.
It's funny in that particular sequence, he was coming off the court, and usually, win or lose, he gives a nod to the people he knows, and he doesn't know me that well, but he knows who I am, and
Sure.
it's funny. He had a look of just pure disgust on his face, and so I didn't try to make eye contact. I was just like sat there like a kid in elementary school who knows that they messed up and is about to get reamed out by the teacher, and I just sat there like stone faced, not moving, because I'm like, oh no, man, don't. He looks mad. I'm not gonna upset the apple cart further here, and so I totally missed the fact that he threw that chair, and all of a sudden, I live 90 minutes from Green Bay, so I drove home. And I get home and I see my phone and all these people are texting like, "Hey, you made it on the internet. You're in the foreground of Bobby Knight's chair throwing or whatever."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh my God!" And I was like, I didn't see the chair being thrown, but I'm like, that.
Honestly, I'm surprised you didn't hear the crash behind you, and you're like, didn't look over and say, "What was that?"
Yeah, no, but it's one of those funny things because I'm like that based on the look on his face when I saw him. I'm like, that definitely checks out. That is not AI generated. That definitely checks out. But back to Milwaukee, back to Milwaukee for a second. Yeah. They pulled that game out, and it's interesting because I think Aguilar may have gotten hurt. They didn't shoot the ball particularly well in that game, but they got a big lift from Aaron Franklin, and Isaiah Dorcius was in the starting five now instead of Pippa White. And so you're seeing, like they had to do some soul searching after they got absolutely thumped by Akron last week. And there's no shame in that. Akron's a great team, but from a standpoint of like to come back and get themselves together, and it's a game of runs, but again, a very entertaining finish. And you think about a guard went up in the land of the trees against a very good rebounding team. Robert Morris is a ridiculously good rebounder.
Absolutely.
And you had Seth Hubbard, who's 6'4", probably listed 6'4", get in there, get his hand on the ball, tip it up high off the glass, and put it home. I mean, that's
Seth Hubbard is making me look good because I'm like, or unless I pulled it, because he was one of my, he was kind of
You pulled him off the list. You had him on.
I pulled him off the list. This is my fault because I flipped it. Yeah. Okay. So now I feel.
I did not.
I am an idiot.
I did not, though.
I was trying to look smart, but no, I'm really not. But yeah. But to your point, I mean, this is what Milwaukee does. This is what Milwaukee is capable of doing. If there is a guy who is not able to go, like in Amar Aguilar. This was the end game for Bart Lundy, that he were able to, when one guy goes down, another guy will be able to step up, and that's why, having a guy like having guys like Amar Aguilar and Seth Hubbard on this roster is huge. Also, it's good to have a great it's a good thing to have an outstanding supporting cast. Aaron Franklin is one of those kind of bedrock guys. He doesn't like show up on the stat sheet all that much, but as a guy who has been on this roster for a good chunk of the time, good chunk of the Bart Lundy era, since it is critical to have that. So for them to be able to do that, and also too, a guy like Danil Ivanovic going up again, getting 7 rebounds against an incredible rebounding team like Robert Morris, where you got guys like, Hidakudis and Deshaun Good, and Josh Hill was huge in that game. He got 10 boards in that game. To beat him for Milwaukee to be able to kind of keep up with a much better rebounding team, and the differential was only like 38-36 in Robert Morris's favor. For Milwaukee to be able to do that, it definitely bodes well for them moving forward, for sure.
Yeah, and honestly, the big takeaway I have from this is that Robert Morris is clearly one of the best teams in the league. They have one of the best individual players in Deshaun Good, who had just a monster week. He had 18-9 against Green Bay, had 26-8 against Milwaukee. He was 16-22 for the floor for the week. I mean, the guy was a monster this week. And the takeaway, though, is Robert Morris had to come from behind and win with 2 seconds left at Green Bay, and only lost with 0.2 of a second left at Milwaukee. So, anybody coming on this road trip this year, because some of the teams still come through and play both teams at the same time, they are, they're going to be in for a battle. So I think getting the Wisconsin teams individually and not having to play them back to back, anybody who gets that schedule is getting a more favorable shake than those who are going to have to come and play both back to back, because this week showed both teams are at least going to make you work.
Oh, and, absolutely. And we, there's been there's been plenty of discussion about the Green Bay situation. This is, first of all, they're making me look less and less crazy for picking him as high as I did, for sure, thankfully. But yeah, to your point, that this Wisconsin road trip for any Horizon League team is going to be a slog, a big time slog, and it doesn't matter who you are. Robert Morris is a very good team, and they are able to they split the series with these two, with the Green Bay and Milwaukee team that were absolutely capable of beating them, to come out of there with at least a split. Probably not the results they wanted, but definitely better than what could have happened, which could have been complete disaster, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, if they would have come out of that 0-2, that would have put a big damper on their title defense hopes. But getting out of there with a split, they're still.
No, I'm sure
alive.
They'll take it. I mean, I'm sure they would have rather have taken the win at Milwaukee, but hey, it is what it is.
Well, you got to think about what's the long game here, and NKU had one of the better non-conference performances from the Horizon League. They split this week. OU only played one game; they got a win. Youngstown got 2 wins. Wright State, who we haven't talked a ton about, was surprisingly solid in the non-conference.
Yeah,
they got a split. So having a split keeps you, you didn't dig yourself a hole, basically.
No, you did not. Correct.
And that's where, Detroit Mercy went 2-0, but they got the benefit of playing the 2 worst temes.
True.
And Robert Morris has 4 games against those teams still to come. So I don't feel like the split is a big factor for them. But being 0-2, I'd be feeling a lot worse for just the title defense hopes.
True.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we didn't talk about Wright State, but just real quick for Wright State. That game against Youngstown, a 1-point game, also another fun game to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, That's one thing I've really appreciated about taking on the weekly role with the podcast. I've been watching. I don't watch. I used to watch one game in its entirety, but now I watch parts of lots of games,
Sure.
and and I've been seeing just so much more good basketball around the league, and that was a really fun game. I think it was a 1 point final score, 69-68, and that
Yeah.
they only had 9 assisted baskets, and they were 3 of 13 on threes. So to lose
Yeah.
by one in a game where their offense really struggled, there's I wouldn't be sleeping on on Wright State just yet. Go on the road
Yeah.
in what is one of the tougher venues, play not that well, and I think they got out rebounded dramatically in that game too.
Not to
They were
mention the
negative.
fact that, not to mention the fact, Brian Tunu was not in the game. I think he was. I think if he was in the game, I missed it. So something. I think he might have been hurt. So we didn't see a lot of him. So
And they
it
got
was a
a
lot more balanced attack. And
yes.
again, this is something that Clint Sargent has been kind of. This is kind of the transition, finally, kind of that transitional point from Scott Nagy to Clint Sargent, where Scott Nagy was all about a really, really short bench, whereas Clint Sargent does not seem to have that limitation. And this all, I mean, again, we're recording this before the Green Bay game, but for Wright State to stay in this game, and to your point, they were atrocious from beyond the arc, but they didn't need to be because they were really good generally. They shot 52% their field goal percentage was 52%. So if a couple of those three-pointers had fallen, this would be a different game. And so, but again, to me, with this is a much deeper rotation for Wright State. I mean, Kellen Pickett, who has been getting minutes, getting quite a bit of minutes, he only played 3 minutes in this game, but
TJ
you're
Birch was big.
yeah, I
He,
mean, you're
he had
getting
14,
different
3 and
guys.
3.
Exactly. You're getting different guys, especially be it in the starting rotation, be it off the bench, that have been able to contribute to this Wright State team. And I think for as young a team as they are, that is huge for them. That is absolutely huge for them. And clearly the learning curve, they are meeting the learning curve that I thought was pretty high at the beginning of the season. They didn't come out with the win against the Youngstown State team that, I mean, let's face it, a lot of people had picked a lot high, pretty high up the top at the top of the top of the preseason standings. So it certainly does bode well for them as far as moving forward. So
Yeah, and also that Youngstown game, they got a big contribution from Sam Alamantu, who
yeah,
we've talked about like kind of being on the milk carton for the start of the season, and
yeah,
he came out of nowhere and he had 13 and 7.
yeah.
Birch was athletically, he really stood out because in that game when I was watching him, like I had no idea who he was. I
Mhm.
literally had no clue. I didn't even know he was on Wright State. I'm not gonna lie. And I was watching and I'm
I
like,
forgot
who
too.
the
I'll be honest with you. For some reason, I thought he was a freshman. He's not.
No, he's a transfer from I think Ball State, and so I
Yeah,
actually was like
totally
mid game.
whiffed on that one almost.
I saw him do a couple things. I'm like, wow, I like that guy. That guy's got
Oh
the
yeah, without a
athleticism to
doubt.
play against a Youngstown State, and so he had a great game. The one shout out I want to give from we talked Youngstown earlier, but Rich Rolfe is another surprisingly underrated guy, and so much attention was paid to Vlad Salarizi in the
Mhm.
non-conf or in the off season, and Rich Rolfe has that starting
Oh
spot, not
yeah,
Vlad. And Rich
yeah, it's
Rolfe has
true.
been money, and he's every time I see, he's like, hitting 40% of his 3 pointers. So he's probably a terrible 3 point shooter for the season when I look
Sure,
it up, but he's been
fair.
really good
He
from
really has been
deep for them as a
for
stretch
sure.
player. He's been
Yeah,
amazing. He's 44% so he is. It's not just every time I see him. He's actually a really good shooter. So that's good because
yeah,
I brought him up on the
absolutely.
preview episode as like a guy that would probably be really good, except he's going to be behind Vlad. But Vlad was hurt, and he got the starting spot, and he's
Hey,
holding
man,
on to it for dear life. So,
absolutely. So,
love to see it.
all right. Well, you know what? That's gonna wrap it up for us. So we're gonna actually have an abbreviated version of the Expand Your Horizon preview podcast because there's about 5 conference games going on between December 11th and December 21st. We will talk about all of those, and that's gonna drop on probably Monday night. Next week, of course, we'll have the regular podcast. Until then, HorizonRoundtable.com. That is where you can find all of our podcast episodes and articles. You can pull us up wherever podcasts are available, and you can pull us up on your Amazon or Google devices. So tune in next week. Until then, thank you all for listening.